Hi, this is Charlie Mato-Toyela with Blue Bear Flutes. Of course, bluebearflutes.com. I think we have our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and everything on that. There's also Blue Bear Arts. You can find us under that sometimes as well. I have been thinking about for a long time making a video to show you how you can make a Native American flute out of something that you can get locally and in most cases pretty inexpensive. I have been asked even in recent times, would you please, make a video showing how to make flutes out of using simple hand tools and what have you. Again, although we've got 3 or 4 videos like that, but also out of materials that they could find locally or nearby. And a lot of people may not have the river cane patch that we have behind us here. They may not have even a bamboo patch in some cases. And I've been told by a few people they live within the United States and didn't have sawgrass. Although I'll tell you, I've been almost every state I've seen has had some form of sawgrass or something similar. I know that you have seen me make flutes out of PVC, which of course you can get anywhere, but if you want something a little more natural, then corn stalks are a really good alternative. Sunflower stalks are great. I personally love making flutes out of 2 other things that are kind of unusual. Tobacco stalks is one of my favorite, and then also don't forget elderberries. They're also one of my other favorites. Those are an original material used for making flutes with as well. Tobacco stalks not too far behind. However, pokeberry bushes are one of my favorites, and they're a little toxic, but still one of my favorite plants to make Native American flutes out of that grows hollow. Having said that, I have no intentions of making flutes out of these materials and selling them, so if you want one, best thing to do is make one yourself like that. If you want one of our other great mini flutes, please check out our website, bluebearflutes.com, and you'll find some. Today, we're going to be using something that most of you can find, whether it be in a hardware store or a craft store, your local retail shop. My gosh, the list really goes on. Just about anywhere, pool stores, every craft shop I've ever been in sold some form of bamboo. A lot of times it's cracked, so you have kind of get what you get type of situation. These are lanterns that I purchased just today for the sake of making a Native American flute out of. They're made out of a bamboo, and something I've seen on the front of their advertisement here, made from fast-growing bamboo, which is really amazing to me that they bother saying that. They could have went a little further and said that it's made out of fast-growing bamboo so that they're not depleting something or to help, sustain the environment a little bit. But fast-growing bamboo, honestly, a lot of you have fast-growing bamboo somewhere near your house. So many people plant it thinking it's a great idea. And this Chinese yellow bamboo here is invasive as all get out. Unlike our natural river cane that's indigenous to the Americas, bamboo is not from here, and it grows crazy fast. It'll grow through a field of something and take that field of something over, grows up through your house and everything else you can imagine. With regards to out of the U.S., of course, this stuff is still available about everywhere. Many of the countries I've been in, I've seen either the sawgrass that we use or one of its distant cousins growing there, and especially a lot of Asian bamboo, which has been used by many different cultures for making flutes with for a long time, so it's good material. What I looked for when I bought this particular piece of bamboo was the longest links that I could find. I looked in the bottom of it here to make sure that the wall of the bamboo wasn't too thick. There are a few species that their wall is so thick that the inside opening was very small. They still make great flutes, but it takes a whole lot more horsepower to do that than what we're going to be doing today. So I chose something with a thin wall, relatively thin wall, like I said, the links are kind of far apart. And in this particular case, I'm going to be making the fingerings and everything just from memory. However, I'm going to send you some schematics, or at least post them in this video, or link to them on our website. My gosh, I have to be so articulate, don't I? I'm going to put a link in the bottom of the video description so that you guys can find some schematics on how to do this yourself. You'll just download the PDF off my website for it. So easy enough. That way you don't have to guess where the fingerings need to go, because if you notice, I didn't bring a ruler or tape measure with me. So this is going to be a little bit larger flute, and I think I'm probably only going to be able to make one out of it. In the case of this smaller diameter, I'm probably going to be able to make 2 or 3 flutes out of it, because of the diameter. Looks like it's going to support maybe a shorter flute, and having a shorter flute is going to give you an opportunity to make more than one. So in the case of the larger, though, I've got to just consider what I'm making, and I'm probably going to have to make it a little longer than just one full length of the bamboo. I'm probably going to have to use like a length and a half. And in doing so, that means I'm going to have to bust the center out. I'm going to show you how to do that. We'll post the pictures at the end of the video for both of the flutes, or whatever we make, however many we make out of it. And then, like I say, you'll have the diagrams in a PDF file. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you'll notice, when you look at this too, before you pick it out at the store, you want to check for cracks. There's one tiny one right here, which I don't foresee being a problem for me, because I'll probably wind up filling it with some super glue, and that'll seal that off and make it kind of permanent, so I'm not worried about it. With regards to the amount of flutes I'm going to be able to get out of it, it's split up here where they split it for the torch. It looks like I might even be able to rescue that and make a short little torch out of it, which is kind of a nice idea. But I'll use this from a mouthpiece area, and I'm going to have this as the node where the actual sound hole and everything is going to go. Then the length of the flute is going to be probably about this long if I'm looking at it right. So first I'm going to start off with this little handheld hacksaw, and I'm going to score it a little bit all the way around in a circle here. Looks like I've got a few mosquitoes out here with me. The reason I'm scoring it as I cut it here is so that I don't have too many splinters. I didn't bring any sandpaper with me, so I want to make sure that I don't have too much there going on. I might even use this file to just kind of round it off a little bit, or maybe I should say flatten it off a little bit, but I'm also going to bevel the corners, which I guess in a way is rounding them off. But I'm doing this mainly so that when I put my mouth up against it, it's not too rough and doesn't make me feel like I should have brought some sandpaper with me. I think this will work pretty good. Let's see here. And in just a minute, I'll put some super glue on all of these cracks so that they don't leak. Let's see here. I'm also going to go inside here and just clean out a little bit of the scar tissue. Okay, not too shabby. I guess y'all can probably see that pretty good. I've got a nice sized mouthpiece here. It looks like it's about 6.5 inches, 6 to 6.5 inches. Something that I don't always make so long, especially not in our standard flutes today. However, for this particular case, being that it's made out of bamboo, it'll help show it off a little bit, so that's why I made it a little longer. And the next step, I think I'm going to eyeball it here and determine how long I need to cut it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then, yep, I think it's going to be right about there. I'm actually, just to give you kind of a heads up, I'm shooting for a flute somewhere near the range of G or F sharp. I'm not going to tune this one with a tuner, so that might be a good video for another day. However, for this particular case, I'm going to just try to get it as close as I possibly can to that G and F sharp range. And you'll see in the little PDF file that I'm giving you, you'll see the difference between the large and the small flutes. And I think it'll help out, give you an idea of tone and how different flutes are made, and might even give you a good range of fingerings there in case you want to make several different kinds of flutes yourself. These mosquitoes, I wonder where they come from. Hasn't rained in weeks. Oh, where'd that come from? Oh, super glue. I could use that. So let's see, just put a couple of drops of this stuff on this crack right here in the node, just to kind of seal it up there. And it's not really cracked in this node, but I'm going to go ahead and put some of this on it because I can tell that it's probably going to. The reason that they crack there is a opening. Now, of course, whoever cut this in the factory or out in the field, wherever they cut these torch bamboos at, They used just a really quick knife and chopped it off, something I do pretty regularly myself. But that exposes a lot of the inside of the bamboo, which makes it vulnerable to cracking because that's where the air leaks out. Excuse me, that's where the moisture leaks out into the air, and it dries out the quickest there. So I didn't mean to rhyme that time. Let's see, just a little bit of glue. There we go. I'll let this guy sit right here for just a second. I'll put this glue cap back on. Hopefully it'll seal up and dry really good for us. So I think this is going to make a nice little flute. Now, different people that make flutes out of bamboo have different ideas. I used to have different ideas. I always wanted to put this flat section here into the back so that you couldn't see it. And then if you'll notice, there's a flat section right here. That's one of the things about this particular type of bamboo. For a while then, too, I was also choosing bamboo that was nice and straight, and I was putting the flat sections on the sides. And this would give you nice round frontage for putting your fingerings the whole time. And I think that's probably what I'm going to do here. But whatever you do, look at your piece of bamboo, determine what looks best to you, and you can kind of go from there. So while we're letting this stuff dry, I'm going to go ahead and mark my holes. Let's see if I'm going to be able to do this with this little hobby knife. And then after I mark them, I'm going to try to determine if I want to use my pocket knife or this knife to really drill them out good. As a lot of you have seen other videos that we've made on making Native American flutes by hand and with few tools and this kind of thing, you'll notice that a lot of times I'll carve out a little, let's see, that's right. I'll carve out a little piece of wood that I'll use to clean my holes up with. And today I brought just mostly these X-Acto type knives, these hobby knives, and my pocket knife, and that's kind of where we're going with this time. So once again, don't get overwhelmed by the placement of these fingers. We will talk about putting the fingerings in the right place here, as we have in many other videos. I just want you to see how it is you can do this with a material that you can usually get at just about any kind of store. These torches have been sold all over the world. Part of the reason that they do that is because the material is so plentiful and people just want to find something they can do with it, so they make these little torches out of them. I remember when I was a kid, these torches were like 20 and 30 bucks a piece. I'm going to be honest with you, and it might show the date that I'm making this in for any of you future video viewers. But when I bought these two torches, they were like $2 and something each, which is just incredibly cheap. I don't know if I can say that it's even worth the time that it took the people to cut this material up. You'll forgive me. Just going to change positions a little bit. So the time it takes to cut this material and to form it and to put these two torch tanks that they have inside of them, I just can't fathom being able to sell these things for $2 and something. Now, if I was making them and trying to sell them as a torch, I think I would probably consider maybe around 10 or $5 or $10 or something. But still, the manufacturer charged the retailer a much smaller price as well. No telling how little. Just in materials alone, this stuff's pretty valuable. I will tell you though, when I was a kid, which has been 40 some odd years ago, my dad and I used to go out and cut bamboo like this from our bamboo patch that we had at home, or from one from somewhere else, and we would sell it to plant nurseries. And we would cut it and sell them for, gosh, I think they went for somewhere between $2 and $3 a piece. And we're talking, like I said, about 40 years ago that we did this. So the way that the world market and commerce and everything has changed, that I don't think that we could probably keep up with it as much anymore. But we were still quite a supplier in the southeast of the United States of bamboo and tomato stakes and things that you could use to hold your plants up with. We did a lot of that. So yeah, most of you probably know, and you can probably imagine, but I have worked with these hollow type materials, both bamboo and river cane and several other species of the hollow plants like this. I've worked with it most of my life in some shape or form. So you seen I was kind of going around in circles with the larger knife there, and then I switched over to the smaller one. I was trying to pierce the inside with the small one so that I can get a good start. You don't have to do that, you know, it's just kind of experience, one of those type of things. Scrape some of this excess super glue off. And when we get done with this flute, I think it's going to be a really nice sounding, really pleasant sounding flute. That's one other thing I would like to mention too. If you're using a hobby knife like this little guy right here, you got to be careful. These blades are very delicate. A lot of times they'll snap right off, and boy, will you learn a lesson. Don't do that. I should probably stop right now and tell you, you really need to wear safety goggles if you're using any kind of tools. You need to use whatever common sense you have, and if you can borrow some from anybody else, that'll be good too. In other words, if you're really young, you might want to ask someone for help with this, and if you are really old, you might want to ask somebody for help with this too. I know I've been planning on my older years and what I'm going to do for flute making. I just imagine myself asking the grandkids, would you drill this hole over here for me? So just be very careful. That's all I can tell you. You should never drill a knife into a hollow material, especially facing at your hand. I mean, this is just crazy dangerous. Honestly, you should probably put this down on a table and maybe go around like that. And speaking of putting the knife into a hollow material, I'm being very careful not to force this. If I force it too much, it'll actually cause the bamboo to split. Bamboo has a tendency to split in the first place, but in the case of just anything that's super dry like this, just about anything will want to split and cause a problem. Also, I see a few more of our mosquito friends have shown up, so I'm wondering if maybe I should have lit one of these torches before I started cutting on them. So bamboo here is a relatively dense material. There's different species, like I said, that are less and more dense and what have you. So it is a good material for making musical instruments out of all sorts. Everything from different types of drums. One of my favorite Chinese stringed instruments is made out of a large bamboo tube, and it is a stringed instrument. However, the strings are actually cut from the piece that they make the body of the instrument out of. So they're still attached, and then the little pieces slid up underneath of it. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I always think it's a ginkin, but sometimes when I look it back up, I find out that's not it. So maybe that's not what it is. But there are so many different types of instruments that you can make like this. Everything from whistles to, like I said, just big drums. You know, when I was a kid, my mom and dad had a drum that was made out of a big piece of bamboo. It had different size slits cut in it, and these slits were very articulate in where they were placed and how they were made, and they also caused the tone of the drum to be a certain way. So it was kind of a neat instrument. It was a really neat drum made out of bamboo, and had a little bamboo handle, drumstick and what have you. And this was a really great thing to play with when I was a kid. And like I said, I've probably made, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 25,000 flutes out of bamboo. Just bamboo, not not including river cane. There was another time when we used to go to different classes and stuff and teach kids how to make Native American flutes, and in doing so, we used a lot of bamboo in those classes, and it was a good material. These holes are getting closer to the size that I want them to be. They're not exactly perfect yet. They're, like I said, getting closer. Truth be known, I will likely want to enlarge them a little bit when I get into my shop after I finish the flute. And the only reason I'm going to do that is so that it will play absolutely outstandingly in comparison to the way that it's going to play pretty dang good at first. So we will see what we will see with this flute here. Okay, so this is just a good start. The next thing I really want to do here is I want to go ahead and cut the track area, and that's a little bit tricky. Once again, if your hacksaw is sharper than mine, you don't want to be sawing into your leg. But this guy here is a very fine tooth, and it would take me an hour probably cutting on my skin with it to actually break the skin. So it does a good job on hard materials, but soft materials like skin is just not that great. Which is good, because I don't want to cut myself, you know? I mean, who would, right? So now I've cut a slit in there. Watch this crazy thing. How about that? You can just kind of pop it up like that and push it up, and it slice it right off, almost exactly the way I wanted it to be. We can clean this up a little bit with my knife. I could have cut into it a little bit deeper, which would yield a little bit deeper flat area for my track to go. But like I said, you know, I wanted to make sure that I didn't go too deep either. And a lot of times I don't even use, when I'm out in the field making flutes for demonstration like this, I don't even use this file. But Jesse suggested that I bring with me today, and I thought, you know, that'll probably make it sound a lot better. So this little file here is just something I'm going back and forth, trying to flatten it out a little bit. It's always good to have this area as flat as you can humanly make it. And that right there is about slick as alligator tears. Yep. So one tendency we have when we're using a file is we want to go like this and like that. Don't do that. When I say we want to, I don't mean it's preferable. I mean we have a tendency to do it. Now we have a nice flat section up here, as you can see, and we also have a flat section down here. I'm going to sharpen this one off with my knife, solely for the sake of making an easy passage for the air to travel when it comes out of the track area and goes across the sound hole. So the reason I'm doing this is so basically it doesn't have a stopper there, nothing to slow it down any. And if you just do a little bit, yep, like that, it makes it look like every flute you have ever seen. Although, like I said, we're just doing this with a file and my pocket knife. Okay, that is so slick. I am very impressed with how smooth that is, just using this simple little file. And one thing I probably should have did before I cut this sucker off is I'm going to go ahead and make a block for this, just so that I can have it on hand. Okay? Just like this. Truth be known, I don't even have to cut this guy all the way through. Let's see. If you ever want to make a flat piece for your flute, all you got to do, say, have a little section right there that you cut into so it stops. You want to bisect this through the body of, or rather the wall of the body of the bamboo. And what this means is it should come out with a relatively flat section. And it looks like, if you see you pierce some of the inside of it, then it's going to have a little round piece inside. Not too bad of a cut. I probably could have done a little better, but hey, you know what? I think this is going to work just fine. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of clean it up a little bit. And let's see. It's just big enough that I can file it like this. And my file is a rather medium fine file, so I'm not filing my fingers in either, which is really nice. It's about as sharp as that hacksaw, maybe a little less. Actually, the hacksaw, if you measure it in grit like you do sandpaper, the hacksaw is probably, I guess, about 10 or 12 grit, whereas this file is probably around 40 to 60 grit. Let's see. That's not too shabby right there. I think that might actually make a good flute block. Let's hope I didn't make it too long. That's always the biggest problem, is did you make it too long? Okay, I think that's pretty sweet. I'll show you about a bevel I'm going to put on that in just a few moments, but for the time being, let's see where we're going here. I think I'm going to make sure that I make my sound hole in a place that is just past the end of this piece of material. Normally I like to make my sound hole right up against the edge of the node, but it's okay if you don't. It's just better if you do, in my opinion. Now, there are flute makers out there that specify, they make it this far away from the node, they make it that far away from the node, solely so they can make it produce a certain kind of sound. That is not something I subscribe to. So those of you who do that, more power to you. Me, no. So what I'm doing right now, like I said, I'm just etching out my design for my sound hole. To me, that is the most important part of a flute, is the edge of the sound hole. You want them to be nice and square. Unless you're making a round sound hole, I like to make them square. Historically, Native American flutes were made with round and square sound holes. You'll find them every which way. Even some smaller whistles that were made with a V-shaped sound hole, which is something that, once again, we've talked about in other videos, mostly eagle whistles and different types of small whistles. I have yet to find the benefit of doing that with a flute. Now, with a whistle, you can make a V-shaped sound hole and not put a track in it, and it'll still play, which is, like I probably said in other videos, kind of a modern miracle in my opinion. But it will. It's pretty neat. Which is the reason a lot of eagle whistles, like I say, old ones you find, were made like that. In the case of a flute, though, something that we're not limited by the bone material that we're using to make this out of. Since it's made out of bamboo, we're kind of, we have a lot easier free reign of carving and everything here. Because of that, I like to make it square. And any of you out there scratching your head saying, God, this guy can talk a lot, this time I'm going to agree with you. Just this time, though. Most of the time I talk to describe what it is I'm doing, but with regards to the track area and the sound hole, and especially with regards to eagle whistles that were made with like a V-shaped sound hole, those just astound me. I'm surprised, that kind of mechanics and science really performs, but it did. So I guess I'm just showing my enthusiasm. Oh yeah, and to that one guy out there who subscribes to me and thumbs down every video that I make, I hope you're still watching. I need you, buddy. We look forward to your thumbs down every single video. My wife says every time we got a new video uploaded, she says, has he thumbs downed it yet? Okay. Now we have a piercing inside of the flute where the sound hole is going to be, and I'm kind of slowly eroding it away, as you can see here. It's getting to where I want it. I'm going to set my flute block down so I don't forget it. Let's see what we got here. This may be one of the best sounding, since my wife told me to bring that file with me. Jesse's always full of good ideas, but this may be the best sounding flute I have made in one of these videos where we use natural materials, because that file did a great job. I mean, we use this file in the shop for a number of other things, but I don't use it for this right here because we have other tools to do that with. So I'm just really beside myself here and how nice it made this area. I think we'll have to remember to bring a file with us every class we go off and teach somewhere from now on. And this thing's starting to shape up and look like an actual sound hole. Okay. Let's see where we're at. One thing I'm going to do, you don't have to do this. Well, let me erode this away a little bit further. One thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to cut a little bit underneath of the edge of the sound hole. I'm going to do this for the sake of making it nice and sharp. And you just have to be careful if you plan on doing something like that at home, because you could actually, with this knife, you can overcut. I mean, certainly you can hurt yourself with it anytime. Don't do that. But you can overstep your cut there and ruin the edge. Well, I think what I'm doing right here, I think this might be okay. I'm just kind of, just kind of gently cutting it out, a couple of different angles. Now, if I had had one of my little jeweler's files here, it would help a little bit, but I'm capable enough with this knife to make a nice, clean, sharp edge there. Although, you at home, if you're following this and making your own, you might decide to bring a little jeweler's file with you and do that. That's kind of potential there. Okay, one thing I didn't show you guys how to do is bust the center out. We're going to have to do that in just a moment. But for the time being, scratching my mosquito bites, let's go ahead and make the air supply hole. Now the air supply hole, let's do this a little different way. Once again, never drill into anything, especially a natural material that is round, anything like this, facing towards your body. Don't do that. That's crazy. It's a bad idea. What I'm doing right now is a no-no. I don't know how else to tell you. I do it because I have fairly good control over the knife. I've got enough scars on my hands to prove it, and I still have most of my digits. Those of you out there are saying, oh, he's making fun of me because I lost a finger in the wood shop. Well, I lost a finger in the wood shop too. I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just saying you got to be careful, please. Please don't cut yourself. Oh, there's some nice cool breeze. The reason I started this hole off by drilling with my knife, the drilling motion, is because it doesn't have to be as beautiful as the other hole, and this might be just a little bit quicker. It does need to kind of match up with it in many ways, and I'm about to show you those. However, it is not necessary for it to be as immaculate as this other little dude. The sound hole needs to be as fresh and clean and square as a raisin being shot out of a... I don't know, that just sounded good. Huh? I'm not sure where I'm going with this. What the heck can you shoot a raisin out of it square anyway? I have to work on my analogies for the next video. I'll see if I can't figure a way to use that one. Okay. Okay, I keep having to tighten my little holder here for my blade because the turning motions that I use sometimes cause the blade to turn that little holder, and you really got to make sure that blade stays in a knife, otherwise you will hurt yourself then too. And if you're not familiar with how to use these types of tools, if you're not experienced with hobby knife or X-Acto knife or whatever other things that we call these, make sure that this isn't your first project you try it out on. Like I said, a little bit of experience sometimes goes a long way. Just be so careful. You know, I could have cut myself 100 times already just in this video. So, as promised, one thing I will show you here that is very, very important is to keep the edges, and I'm still working on this side here, but I want to show you. The edges of this air supply hole, that's when you blow air through here, it comes out, therefore it becomes the air supplying hole. The edges need to match up best you can with these edges of the sound hole. Some of you who are flute makers, experienced ones at that, use round holes in the back, and that's fine, whatever works for you. But for those of you who are beginners and have never done this before, or this is like your second or third attempt or whatever, I'm going to tell you right now, it'll work a lot better if the air supply hole and the sound holes edges match up. So that's why I'm whittling just a little bit right here and right there. Now, if your air supply hole is bigger than your sound hole, you'll be okay. At that point, the thing that's most important is how big your track is. If your track is the same width as this sound hole, but your air supply hole is really wide, it'll be okay. Now, if your track and your air supply hole are really wide, and they're wider than your sound hole, you might get a little bit of an airy sound. That's just how it goes. It's because you're blowing air in a place that it doesn't have any potential to make a sound. I mean, it's kind of logic. That's where it becomes airy. Okay, that's not too shabby. The next and most important part, as most of you know, is the track area. The way we're going to accomplish that is I'm going to run my knife right along here, just like this. Now, this is one way to create your track. There are so many other ways. There was a time when we used to make separate track pieces to put on here. That had its own conveniences. These days, I've gotten fairly decent at doing it like this, so we don't do it the other way as often anymore. So what we're going to do is just peel up a little layer of material there. You might find this is easier accomplished with a file. Shoot a rotary tool, handheld rotary tool like a Dremel or something. Those do great on this too. Now I'm going to be really careful with this. This is a method using this sharp little knife here that you gotta just make sure you don't hurt yourself. You know what I mean? Let's go back and do this one more time. So once again, I'm kind of sawing back and forth, and I'm holding it in my hand like this to show you. I have to have some way to hold tension against it and do it like this. Otherwise, I'd be holding up against a table if I were doing this in front instead of out in a natural area here and in front of the camera. Anyway, you want to go back and forth just a little bit, just like that right there. Let's see. I'm going to go back over this side. Just be very careful. You don't want to cut outside of where you want your... I'm trying to make sure that this stays really nice and smooth and in between my two lines that I've created for the sake of the track here. It's just really important not to cut yourself. You see, you could jab right into a major artery there, and, well, let's just say it wouldn't be a fun flute making experience. Anyway, be very careful, whatever you do. You don't have to follow the same procedure that I do on everything. There are so many other ways to do this. Like I said, a little file would probably help you out some here. I like to use burning tools, as all of you know. Those of you who are just tuning in with us for the first time, seeing this video on making a Native American flute, you can really check it out and see how many other ways that we make this track area. There are so many other techniques you can use other than just simply using a moderately dull pocket knife to carve them out with. You don't have to do that. You can You can use sandpaper, you can use a file, you can use, like say my burning tools that I use. You can use a number of things here to make this happen. You just really want it to be relatively smooth. And one other thing, this is a trick that I want you to know, those of you, once again, who haven't seen this in my other videos. I'm going to very gently just make a little bevel right here on the edge of where it goes to the sound hole. On the back side, I'm going to make quite actually a very abrupt bevel so that it can actually let the air out of the air supply hole area quickly and more articulately, I'm hoping anyway. So I've got, there we go, there's a nice bevel. Just so that you can see what a bevel looks like, here's a nice one on the back side, a very gentle one up here on the front side. As a matter of fact, 9 times out of 10, when I do this, I always use a file, just a hand file, not a tool, electric tool, not anything fancy, just a hand file to bevel it right there and to make it nice and sharp under here. So we are so close to having a playable flute, I believe. And truthfully, I could probably put this on there and say, hey, it works. Let's do this one other thing real quick. So I've showed you how to flatten this whole thing out. I'm also going to make a bevel on one edge of the block. And the reason that that's kind of important is it helps the air come out of the track and go across the whole area there where the sound hole is much more readily. And readily is important sometimes. So you can kind of tell it's just a light little bevel there. And this is going to set so that the air, you can kind of see it there. If I blow in it, it'll make a nice little sound, but you know what? I'm not going to blow in it yet because we've got one important thing, and that's this plug. Inside of a piece of bamboo, there is a block, a plug, everywhere you see one of these links. If there's not one, it's a species I've never seen before. Sometimes the little links in there are hard, and sometimes they're soft. Sometimes they're easy to bust through, and sometimes you'll crack the whole flute up if you try to do it that way. So I'm going to show you a technique that I can do right now that should help us out, and I do have a last resort over here nearby if I can't do it that way. So having said that, we do not want to knock out the link underneath of the block. This is here for a reason. This one needs to be open. So the first thing I'm going to do is unscrew the blade off of my little hobby knife here. I'm doing that because I know my blade is about the right length. I'm going to try to bump it with the end of this file handle a little bit. If that doesn't do the trick, which it feels like it might, now if you're trying this at home, I'm going to tell you, you may destroy your hobby knife. Fortunately, I have 200,000 of these boogers laying around. Let's see what it looks like. Oop, getting close. And hobby knife looks no worse for wear. I'm just going to keep doing this. It's amazing I haven't hit myself yet. Okay, the other way to do this is to gently bump it on something hard like that, which looks like it's taken us a little ways. So you need something that will pierce this, like that. Now I have a small hole inside of it. The small hole is helpful, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to take this little piece of dowel and see if I can get any more of that busted out. You'll notice I'm turning my dowel a little bit as I jab down here. I've noticed too that there's a small crack in the bottom of my bamboo, and that's not really a huge problem. It actually can be a huge problem, but we're not going to let it be. Top of this still looks like it's pretty sturdy, which usually means I'm busting through it fairly good. making some progress, it feels like. Okay, that's actually a lot bigger. I'm going to gently push this up towards the top and pull it out a couple of times just to kind of clean some of the bamboo fibers a little bit. Like I said, you don't want to bust through this link. Don't do that. Your flute will not play if you do that. So, let's see if I can maybe cover these holes up and blow through the air, or the sound hole rather, and get some of that paper out. In an upcoming video, we may be making a Chinese flute that uses this paper out of the inside of the bamboo for a resonant sound. I've got one. I've had it since I took Chinese years ago, and it's amazing. It's kind of an interesting instrument, so I thought, hey, you know, it'd be something we could do that might show y'all a little different aspect of a flute. Once again, that's a Chinese flute, however. We'll talk about that when the time comes. Trying to loosen up some of that fiber in there. Now, unless you use an actual cleaning rod or some other technique, there's always going to be a little bit of fiber up in there. And, you know, you could burn it out. You could do a number of different things. Any of you have seen my video on using the sanding rod on the end of a drill, that would clean this up really nice. I mean, just super, super nice. And that, I believe, is what we probably will do once I get this thing back to my shop. But for the time being, I think we have a viable instrument here. Lay some of my tools back where they go. And let's see what this sounds like, I think. Bamboo paper everywhere. And if you're watching this, Lowry, thanks for the leather lace. I've been saving it to use it on something fancy. Lowry's a good friend of ours that told me about a leather lace supplier that he uses. And he is a kind of a retailer, and he buys this stuff wholesale. We've been still using our own leather lace in the shop that we cut ourselves because it's convenient for our needs. Plus, we just bought like several $100s worth of leather, so might as well stick with it for a bit. There we go. And those of you who are wondering what I just did, I just tied like a slip knot. Is basically a way to tie two knots on this thing so that it will hold it together. Let's see if it plays. Now, keep in mind these notes might be a little bit off because of their diameters for right now, but once I open them up some, it should play pretty good, I think. Yep, very, very flat on those notes. So the holes will have to be opened up quite a bit to make it play properly. And then I think we might have us a humdinger of a Native American flute made out of bamboo. One other minor problem we have here is, of course, the inside of this hole is still a little bit restricted. Not too bad, though. I could, of course, put this on a tuner, like if I was in the wood shop making this flute. I would put it on a tuner to see which way it goes. My hearing is very good with regards to intonations and notes and what have you, and I usually can tell by playing it. But sometimes, you know, if it's far one direction or another, you're thinking to yourself, what the heck's going on? Or if you just need to kind of recenter your hearing so that you get a better idea of what you're listening for, sometimes it's a good idea to use a tuner. And of course I have a tuner on my smartwatch too, which is pretty handy. I'm going to open these holes up just a pinch here. We should be able to hear a difference. Now, most of you probably know the top holes are usually a little larger than the bottom holes. In this particular case, I think it's the same on this particular flute. But I'm not going to open them up just yet. Let's see what it sounds like. This one needs to be a little bit bigger, and then we need to make these a lot bigger. So let's see what we do here. This process can be a little timely. Sometimes too, I know many of you enjoy watching our videos, and we appreciate all of you. Even that guy that thumbs down, just like I said, you've got a special place. I'm just playing. I usually do that to make my wife laugh. She's a camera guy, so. Anyway, many of you that like to watch our videos, you'll notice that we try to film at a certain time of day. Like it's almost always at dusk or somewhere around dusk. Not only is that good for lighting, but if you hear these bugs and the birds and everything, all comes out at night. So we try to hit it with enough, predict how long it's going to take the video, and make it to where it's just enough light that it's going to be seen very well. And some of you might think to yourself, it's really good lighting on your video. Well, that's because we have a camera that can shoot in almost complete darkness. It's a little dark out here for my taste right now. But I always reflect back on this video we made up at Moundville, Alabama, making a Cherokee flute out of river cane. And it was a great video, and we put so much time and thought into it. But that was one of our early videos, and the daylight got away from us so quickly. I mean, we couldn't see how to walk back to where we were going. It was that dark. But the video turned out so well and everything, so we left it up, and we uploaded it and left it online and stuff, and it's still available right now if you look for it on our YouTube channel here. I always reflect back to that video, though, thinking, make sure we have enough time to do this. There's a lot of times we start videos like this, and we might finish it up on the next day at the same time of day so that we can, and I'll put on the same clothes, and it's just crazy. Today's not one of those times. Today, this is one shot. Except for a minor camera malfunction and a nearby air compressor coming on during part of the video clips that you didn't see. This is one take. I know, behind the scenes, right? I hope that doesn't ruin it for you guys. I'm one of those kind of crazy people that I'm always thinking, what's going on behind the scenes? Let's see, we are getting so close. Let's see how close we are. Yeah, these two guys need to be opened up quite a bit, and it's going to be an excellent, excellent flute. And rather than make all of you sit through this entire next 30 minutes of me whittling these holes out, I could just make this happen quick for you. Okay, and thanks to the miracle of modern magic, it looks like I think I've got all the holes about the right size. Let's see what it sounds like. All I did was make the holes a little bit larger in diameter, and poof, there we are. So right now the holes are about 1/4 of an inch. Truthfully, to make it perfectly in tune, we'll need to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I think it's really excellent right now. So I think I'll sit here and play a song on it for these cicadas, one of my favorite bugs in the whole world. I know a lot of you think, wait a minute, he said he was Cherokee, right? Yeah, so Cherokee people used to eat cicadas like crazy. Of course, Creeks and a lot of other southeastern Indians did, because, well, really, come to think of it, lots of Indian people ate cicadas. They're very plentiful. They're actually very meaty. I personally don't eat them. I don't eat shrimp, so I don't like cicadas. If I ate shrimp, I would love cicadas because, as I'm told, they taste the same. I know they smell the same cooking anyway. But anyway, I'm going to sit here and play these guys a song for a second and see if they can appreciate it. Hopefully they will. And you guys have any questions, feel free to send them to us via email. Post them in the comments below. Is always great because other people might be asking the same questions. And don't forget to thumbs up, comment, that one guy. Do what you got to do. Anyway, thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you like what you see. Thank you guys so very much again. Once again, this is Charlie Mato-Toyela. I see my little redbird friend flying right over here to hear me play, so I'm going to have to start soon.